Welcome back to the Extra Zone Arcade, and to Mario March. The Mario 40th Anniversary Superspective continues today as we enter the 16-bit world of the SNES. Last time, we covered Mario's Game Boy titles. My conclusion was that Land 1 was an interesting novelty for the time, but absolutely shows its age in the limited hardware. Meanwhile, Land 2 was a significant improvement that, while still held back by the device it was on, was nearly on par with Mario's console efforts. Mario Land 2 also took a lot of influence from today's subject, Super Mario World. And yes, I did break the chronology a bit here since this game was released first. So, let's talk about how that release came to be. Following the insane success of the NES and the launch of the Game Boy fresh in everyone's minds, Nintendo had another console in the works. This one was going to be a game changer, quite literally. Some of Nintendo's competition had already gotten into the 16-bit market as they were releasing NES titles, namely NEC's TurboGrafx-16 and most poignantly, Sega's Mega Drive. Sega had already been in the video game and console market for a while, with the SG-1000 and Master System being their answer to the NES. But getting ahead of Nintendo here would prove to be an incredible advantage for them since all the cool kids wanted to check out the new tech. And thus began something of an arms race that would pit Nintendo and Sega in an over decade-long rivalry. And it was a fierce one, especially when a certain iconic blue speedster took the center stage. For the first time, Nintendo, and most relevant to this video, Mario, had some competition. Though this didn't quite factor into Super Mario World's development, it did have an impact on its legacy, which we'll talk more about later. With Shigeru Miyamoto back in the producer's seat, Koji Kondo in the studio making bangers, and Shigefume Hino designing the graphics, Mario's first 16-bit game would enter development. Originally beginning as an experimental port of Super Mario Bros. 3, they quickly shifted gears to something more unique that showcases the powers of the Super Nintendo, or Super Famicom as it's known in Japan. This included bringing back a scrapped reptile jockey concept from all the way back in the original Super Mario Bros.' development, since it was now possible with the new hardware. This birthed easily one of the most popular characters in the Mario franchise, although he sounded more like this at first. He would go on to star in this game's direct sequel, which is a prequel to the entire Mario series since it would feature Mario as a baby. And no, we're not covering it for this series because I don't consider it a mainline title. Some would argue it is as it's called Super Mario World 2, but honestly, that part is the subtitle. Yoshi's Island is clearly the focus, much like Wario Land was in Super Mario Land 3. And that's also why we didn't cover that game. Tangent aside, development took 3 years with a team of 16 staff and hold it! This game released in Japan on November 21st, 1990, meaning this game started development in 1987? As in before Super Mario Bros. 2 or 3 released? As in the same year Super Mario Bros. Released in Europe? Wow, that just screwed with my perception of time in ways I couldn't even begin to describe. The game would release in the summer of 1991 in the United States, and in 1992 for Europe. And I gotta say, despite this being in an era way before my time, I love this game to bits. To this day, it's one of my top 3 Mario games. Spoilers, I guess, but Odyssey and Wonder are the other 2 in that top 3, and honestly, it changes from day to day which one of these is absolute top of the list. This is also a game I'm heavily nostalgic for, being one of the first Mario games I ever played. If you watched the previous episodes on the first 4 games, you'll know that pretty much most of my early Mario experiences were through using browser emulators at school. You might also remember me saying that Super Mario Bros. 3 was the first one I played this way. Well, World was the second, and while I still played 3 more, this one quickly became my favourite. The graphics, music, level gimmicks, and especially Yoshi drew me to this one. But man, I was bad at it. This game was just ever so slightly more difficult than 3 to me, so I'd get stuck at Vanilla Dome during most of my play sessions. You can bet that when I finally gained the willpower to make it out of that damn cave, I made sure everyone knew about it. But my exposure to Mario World wasn't just from the game. I also watched the 13-episode Super Mario World cartoon on repeat for probably weeks in the form of some YouTube uploads. This led me down a rabbit hole of YouTube poops that absolutely had a hand in shaping the completely normal and functioning member of society I am today. To some of you younger viewers, first of all, get the fuck out. Second, this shit was our skibbity toilet. Honestly, don't even remember if I'd gone back to watch the show since. Maybe we'll do a Mario cartoon retrospective in the future, I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you want to see something like that, I guess. Back to the game. Yeah, this is one of those games where it's a yearly tradition for me to go back and 100% complete it every year. My most notable revisit was during the Mariothon series from 2023, where I streamed all the mainline Mario games. Here was my conclusion on World after that. But yeah, Super Mario World. So yeah, like I just said, this is my favorite Mario game, and honestly, it always has been, just because
it's one of those games that you can just go back to like over and over and over again, and it never stops being fun. Every time I do a full playthrough, it's never, no, I'm not just gonna go straight to the end. I'm gonna do everything. That's because this game is just straight up, it's just fun. The controls are fantastic, like the best that 2D Mario has ever been. The level design is fantastic. Yoshi being introduced is one of the best things that was ever added to the Mario series, and this game absolutely does him well. Just everything about this game is so goddamn perfect, and like, I listen, I love this game. I could gush over it for hours, but like, you know.
Now, it's worth mentioning that this series was streamed before Wonder released, so competition for my top spot would only get tighter. That said, World was pretty firmly my number 1 up to that point, and I made it no secret. But what about now? Has anything changed at all? Put simply, no. But you're not here for the short answer, or else why would you be watching? So, let's get into why Super Mario World is a perfect game. The story of this game takes place after the Mario Bros defeat Bowser and his army in 3, and so they, along with the princess, decide to go on a vacation. The destination being a place of wonder known as Dinosaur Land. As the brothers decided to take a load off with a nap, Princess Peach has been captured again. Seriously, you can't leave her to her own devices for even a split second. So, they go looking for her in this new land and stumble across these large mysterious eggs. One of them hatches to reveal a Yoshi, who explains that the monstrous turtles with overwhelming power trapped him and all of his friends inside these eggs. With the help of their new friend, they set out to rescue the princess and all of Yoshi's buddies, ridding the land of the Koopa menace. You know what? I appreciate the effort this game makes for world building. This game having continuity is already nice, and we'll actually see a pretty fantastic example of this later on. But the change of scenery and new added cast members really freshen things up. But at the end of the day, it still boils down to Bowser has Peach, go save. Starting the game out, you're treated to a gameplay segment for the title screen. And for the first time, not just save files, but 3 of them. These also track your progress, the number of exits you've gotten. More on that later. There's even something of an opening cutscene that gives light details on the story and a small area you can enter, known as Yoshi's house. You can use this small area to get to grips with the game's controls, and man, they are amazing. They really got it down to a science with this game. Basically, take Mario 3's controls, speed them up slightly, and cut down on the floatiness. I think this makes for the snappiest controls he's ever had, while not feeling unwieldy. I know some may not prefer how much more precise it feels, but it makes platforming incredibly satisfying. In 3, sometimes platforming could just feel like a task to do since the floatiness made it all so simple. Here, platforming feels challenging but completely fair. When I fumble, that's 100% on me. The acceleration curve feels natural, running with P speed feels even faster, and stopping results in less of a slide than before. We've even got a new move this time in the form of the spin jump. By the way, this was in Mario Land 2 as well, but I forgot to mention it. Oops. Anyway, it debuted here, and is used to break through these yellow blocks with eyes, and even bounce off spiked obstacles and enemies without taking damage. Just a very useful tool to have in your kit that leads to a ton of hidden goodies. Oh, and I guess you can look up now, which really doesn't do anything other than allow you to throw Koopa shells and other holdables upwards. Useful for reaching things you normally couldn't. This game goes back to Mario reverting to his basic state after getting hit even with a power-up, and I think this alone is enough to make the game harder than 3. Although, much like that game, it's unlikely you'll ever see the game over screen since they hand out lives like they're on clearance sale. This game is especially generous with them, to the point where there are entire levels that can be used just to grind lives. But you can mitigate the whole reverting back to small Mario and hit with your new buddy, Yoshi. Hatch him from an egg hidden in a block and hop on his back for a joyride. He's pretty much an extension of your base moveset, with him being able to do all the actions that regular old Mario can do. Well, minus the spin jump, but it's not really needed since Yoshi has steel soles in his shoes and can jump on spiky things by default. Instead, Yoshi can use his tongue to gobble enemies or obstacles, and this man can eat pretty much anything. Like, his intestines have to be completely scrambled at this point. Spikes and fire as your regular diet couldn't possibly be healthy. Eat enough things and Yoshi will lay an egg containing a power-up of some kind. Usually the returning super mushroom or one-up mushroom. The fire flower is also back and works the same way it always does, but this time you can actually get coins for defeating enemies with it. Yoshi can be taken from level to level as well, so he basically acts like a power-up in and of himself. Though he can't go into castles, fortresses or ghost houses. Guess they have a strict no pets policy. Otherwise, you can bring the guy wherever you like, or ditch him if you're an asshole. This mounting Yoshi in midair will actually give you a boost, essentially a double jump, which can be really useful. Especially when going for some of those secret exits, which again, we'll talk more about later. I can't help feeling bad leaving him there like that, especially if the place I'm leaving him is in a bottomless pit. I like to think he just flutter jumps himself to safety, even if that move didn't exist for him just yet. There are also different coloured Yoshi. The green look is the one you'll see for a good 90% of the game, who can gain special abilities from different coloured Koopa shells. Red shells let him spit out fire once eaten, blue shells make him sprout wings that give him temporary flight, and yellow shells give him a ground stomping ability when landing from a jump. Eat one of these flashing Koopa shells and he'll get all of the above, basically making him Super Yoshi. This was actually the inspiration for Yoshi's final smash in Brawl and Smash 4, before they changed it to the Yoshi Stampede from Melee's opening in Ultimate. When riding Blue Yoshi, every type of shell he eats will give him wings. With Red Yoshi, they all let him spit fire, and with Yellow Yoshi, every shell grants him the ability to stomp. Though, once again, these other colours don't really come into play until very late into the game, and even then you won't come across them in a standard playthrough. That's because they're almost all located in the game's Star World, which marks the first time we've essentially had bonus content in one of these games required for 100% completion. Or in this case, 96 star completion. In order to get to the Star World, you'll need to scour the levels in the game's 7 main worlds to find secret exits. These are alternate goals in the levels, and usually levels with a secret exit are marked using a red dot in the overworld map. This has also seen a massive overhaul since Mario 3, with it no longer just being 8 or technically 9 counting the warp zone, different maps. No, this time it's all set up as one big map with multiple areas within it. Another thing that really strengthens this game's sense of world building and cohesive setting. But I think now we should talk about those levels. I'm just gonna come right out and say it. These are the best 2D Mario levels of all time. They're the perfect blend of challenging platforming and gimmick-based levels that the series has seen to date. Nintendo is known for having extremely well-designed games that introduce a mechanic, and slowly but surely increase the complexity of it as a level or game goes on. This game is the absolute epitome of that. A level starts out with an enemy in front of you. It's a safe bet that that's what the stage is going to revolve around. Or, you notice a set of moving platforms over bottomless pits, and you know exactly what you're getting into. This game does such a fantastic job of making sure you understand how certain things work before asking you to do it with more precision and skill. That is great design. You're always given clear signs of where you need to go in these stages, but they still hang little carrots over you every now and then that signal where you could possibly take a different path. That's what makes this game so exciting to play, really open up all of its secrets. You're encouraged at every turn to look beyond the obvious and try something new, and at that, there are usually multiple ways to go about that. Take this secret exit in Donut Plains 1 for example. You could fly up here using the new Cape Feather power-up, or run up the green blocks you activated by finding the secret exit in Donut Plains 2. Alright, the Cape Feather. Yeah, it's only the most busted power-up in Mario history, being extremely fun to use with its rhythm-based flight that could literally let you skip over an entire level if executed right. And did I mention it lets you glide down after a jump like Raccoon Mario with a spin attack move you can spam infinitely? If that somehow wasn't enough, it also has a dive bomb move that kills every enemy on screen. This thing is genuinely crazy, and no power-up has ever come remotely close to being this overpowered and amazingly fun to use. Is it a little over the top? Sure. But I'd be lying if I said this wasn't the most baller thing the series has ever done. This and the hammer suit are always going to have a special place in my heart. Unlike the hammer suit though, it's super easy to get one of these. It becomes even easier if you unlock the top secret area, which is found by locating the Donut Ghost House's secret exit. Here you get a free power-up in Yoshi Bank that you can go back to anytime. Gotta be one of my most visited areas in any video game. This thing has saved my ass on multiple occasions. I wouldn't say it's my favorite though, which speaks to how good the levels are in this game. There are so many good picks for the best level in this game, man. Donut Plains 1 for introducing us to the Cape Feather, Forest of Illusion 1 for just how many different ways you can get through it, and Groovy for actually being the level we see on the title screen. Funny that it's one of the last levels in the game, but I think I gotta give it to Donut Plains 1. This level perfectly encapsulates everything this game is. The charm, the personality, the fantastic design, and once again, the busted ass cape. Don't forget the previously mentioned secret exit and how fun it is finding ways to get there. Plus, when you get to this point in the game, being the second world, the game starts to open up a lot more. So this level is a good primer for what's to come. And there are a ton of other standout ones, including the newly introduced ghost houses. These can be some of the more trickier and confusing levels to get around, but that feeling when you finally make it out and taste fresh air again is unmatched. Water levels and auto-scrollers are also back with a vengeance in this game, and although I feel like they're mostly better designed, I still don't particularly like playing them. The worst level has got to be Soda Lake. Remember how I mentioned how Vanilla Dome would always be my stopping point as a kid and how on top of the world I felt when I finally got through? Well, that all came crashing down when I got here, and this level stresses me out to this day. Torpedo Ted is responsible for a very disproportionate amount of my deaths in this game. The runner-up for death count would have to be the sunken ghost ship. The way the boos appear here really catches me off guard a lot of the time, and I died a ton to that falling section at the end. But this level is super cool and creepy otherwise. It turns out that this is a crashed airship from Mario 3, where all the enemies on board died and became boos. Mario is quite literally being haunted by his past here, and it's something so incredibly eerie and surprisingly deep for this series. The level even ends with you picking up one of those question mark orbs that Boom Boom dropped when defeated, meaning he was likely on board too. Spooky. Though that's not the only thing returning from Super Mario Bros. 3, as the Koopalings are back and are pretty much exactly what you'd expect. Iggy and Larry are fought at the beginning and end of the game respectively, and your goal is to push them into the lava before you're sunk. Morton and Roy are back and will run up the walls, climbing the ceiling and try to drop on you. I absolutely embarrassed Morton during this fight. Bro didn't stand a shred of a chance running at me like that. Lemmy and Wendy hide in pipes and pop out along with decoys of themselves. Bonk the right one and they're done with. Then we have Ludwig, who's actually a mid-game boss this time and has the only unique fight in the game. He shoots fireballs, retracts into his shell to spin at you, and tries to leap at you. Definitely the best fight in the game short of the final battle against Bowser. There are other fights though, like the one against Big Boo, where he can only be damaged by throwing these flashing blue blocks at him. There's also Reznor, who's a semi-recurring boss in this game and wouldn't return to the series for another 20 years. And he hasn't appeared again for another 13 since then. Somebody get this guy a better contract, this is ridiculous. They spin around on a wheel and shoot fireballs at you, with the only way to take them out being to hit the underside of the platform they're standing on. Once all the threats have been dealt with, you confront the Koopa King in his really flashy castle that has a back door that leads almost right into his throne room? Bowser, are we serious? First the whole letter thing from Super Mario Bros. 3 and now this? At this point you want to get your ass kicked, because why else would you ever feel the need to do this? Let alone make it easily accessible by your arch enemy. Anyway, the fight itself is actually really cool and feels appropriately climactic for a final boss. This is an aspect that previous games kinda dropped the ball on, but that was mostly due to hardware limitations. Now, Bowser is bigger and badder than ever in his clown car. That's certainly a vehicular statement. Anyway, in the first phase, he flies around overhead and drops Mecha Koopas that you have to stomp and throw back up so they hit his head. Gotta get that timing right so it doesn't hit the car. After showcasing the Super Nintendo's Mode 7 feature that allows for smooth sprite scaling and rotation, it's on to the second phase. This time, he'll drop giant bowling balls down that will roll after you before launching more Mecha Koopas. Then, in the final phase, he just wants Mario pulverized as he tries to stomp you out using the clown car itself. Once he's been thoroughly dealt with, Peach, who helped in the fight by supplying super mushrooms between phases, is freed from Bowser's clutches. They all return to witness the baby Yoshi's hatch and all is well once again. Normally this would be the part where I talk about the game's impact and legacy along with my final thoughts, but for the first time, we have a post-game to talk about. Well, assuming you didn't do the Star World and Special Zone before taking on Bowser. Anyway, as mentioned before, finding secret exits in certain levels in 5 of the game's 7 regular worlds will open up a corresponding Star World level. These levels aren't anything too crazy, but when you complete all of them and get their respective secret exits, the real fun begins. The Hidden World 9 or Special Zone contains some of the most difficult levels in the game. Chief among those being Tubular for being a level that's almost entirely a death pit where the only thing keeping you afloat is the newly added P-Balloon. It's a temporary power-up that inflates Mario like a balloon, allowing you to float through obstacles. In this level, you gotta make sure to keep picking them up, and you can't take damage even once or you'll pop and fall into the abyss. Completely unforgiving. The final level, Funky, can also be a troublesome one due to the Sumo Bros scattered around. It's also the most expansive stage in the game and you're only given 200 seconds to beat it, with the only way to increase that time being to eat the green berries with Yoshi. If you make it through, you're treated to a message written in coins that says you are a super player. Really adds to that sense of accomplishment for finishing the toughest challenges in the game, and really learning the game inside and out to get there. With that level and all 96 exits now being complete, you head back to the main map to find everything has had an autumn themed makeover. Some of the enemies are wearing Halloween themed costumes like Mario masks or pumpkin heads, and Chocolate Island is now Mint Chocolate Island. A nice little completion reward for those willing to put in the time and effort. This is still one of the best and most fun post-game and 100% experiences in any Mario game. And like I said back in my Mariothon series, this is always how I come back to the game. The journey is just so fun that 100% run is pretty much my default way to play. Everything about this game is just so immaculately designed, from the challenge to the mechanics and even the presentation. This game took advantage of the new hardware that SNES bought. It's so colourful and the animations are just so much more expressive. This is the first time Mario has truly felt like a character and not just a player avatar. The first time his world feels like it's come to life. That's all bolstered by the incredible soundtrack that makes amazing use of a single leitmotif for almost every track. It's actually kind of a crime how much good use they got out of the same little tune, and yet I never get tired of it. The control and gameplay have been refined once again to basically perfection, and the game blends tough challenges and innovative gameplay mechanics seamlessly. Sure, maybe the boss fights aren't amazing, and the physics can occasionally get a bit wacky, but neither of those things are enough of a knock against this title. And I'm clearly not alone in this, because the game sold over 20 million copies on just the SNES alone, and the game was met with absolutely rave reviews. To this day, Super Mario World is cited as being one of the greatest video games of all time and praised for its leaps and bounds in the platforming genre. We have a lot to owe to this game, and even as someone who was born way after the fact, I have so much appreciation for everything they did here. The best way to experience this game kinda depends on what you're looking for. I think if you really value the aesthetics and sound of the original, play the Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World version. It's basically the same as the original SNES release, but notably includes a resprited Luigi with new animations. The Super Mario Advance 2 version is also really solid and has some nice new additions, but the colors are all washed out and some of the music was butchered pretty badly. Just listen to Vanilla Dome's music. What happened here? So honestly, you could go either way, but it's still an incredible game no matter what format you experience it. However, amongst all the hype for this game's initial release was its detractors. You see, when this game released in North America in August of 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog had already been out for 2 months. To say the competition between the two games was fierce would be an understatement. Sonic was the new kid on the block, and Mario was starting to look a little last generation. And thus, the great console wars of the 90s began, with Sonic and Mario at the forefront of this battle. Sega vs Nintendo was all anyone could think about, as their two biggest franchises would continue to butt heads over the next decade. They both took equal shots at each other, but only one could stand victorious. And in the mid-90s, Nintendo had an idea for how they could secure that crown that Sega knocked loose. But that's a story for another time.
Konnichiwa, konnichiwa, Super Famicom. Konnichiwa, konnichiwa, Mario no deban da. Konnichiwa, konnichiwa, Mario no kuni kara. お尻に火がつく面白さ、スーパーマリオブラザーズ4、スーパーファミコンでいよいよデビュー。
And so another episode of the Mario 40th Anniversary Superspective is done. Let me know down in the comments what you think of Super Mario World. Was the glazing too intense, or do you think I was right on the money? I'd love to hear your take on it, but remember to be respectful about it. We value nuanced discussion here and not dumb arguments like you'll see in other online communities. Make sure to sub up so you don't miss an episode of this series, and go check out the YouTube live channel for some live stream action. The next time I see you will be in 64 bits. Until then, take care.